Good morning, class. Happy Friday. So today is going to be kind of a review day, give you some updated information. Key thing is once again from yesterday, connecting Enlightenment ideas to the American Revolution. So here's what I'd like to go through today. First, I want to review this idea of progress. I have graded your debates, which focused on this idea of what progress looks like from a Christian point of view. So I will go through that. Also give you information about how to retake that debate if that's something you would like to do. We will then review the worksheet you turned in yesterday morning, the Loyalist Primary Source Analysis worksheet, and then I will give you some information about revising and updating the quick write that you should have written yesterday and turned in, and you'll be creating kind of your final draft of that, which is due today at 3 p.m. So first, when we talk about this idea of progress, we're talking about a forward or onward movement toward a destination. When you Google progress definition, that's what Google comes up with. Right? So that can be used as a starting point to create our own definitions of progress from a Christian point of view, and some of you actually did that. What we have to figure out then really is two things. One, what's the destination? Right? Where are we ultimately striving to go towards? And then two, how do we get there? What does that forward and onward movement look like? And I like this little illustration because it shows how progress isn't something that steadily goes up, that we move up and down and up and down, and that's how history works too, or there are moments and times in history where things seem to be moving in an upward trajectory, but also times where we seem to take a step back and are going back down. I also like the fact that we have lots of people doing different things. The way you can help achieve progress from a Christian point of view, can and should look different than a different Christian who maybe has different gifts and abilities that they can use to help achieve progress. But that is something that you've got to think about, not just for you individually, but also for us collectively as a body of Christ. And even in this current situation, how can you achieve progress in your personal life and collectively as a body of Christ during this stay-at-home pandemic situation? And that's something we should always be striving for. We should always be hoping for growth in our spiritual lives. We've got to figure out what we're growing to and how we can accomplish that growth. And so the essential questions we've got, okay, second one we just went through. The third one is the one I want to focus on, is what makes a revolution justified? What makes it, quote, right, end quote? What makes it necessary, where the causes of the revolution are worthwhile, it's legitimate. So the Loyalists were a group of people who sided with Britain instead of the Patriots, the revolutionaries. They, instead of wanting a revolutionary war and declaring independence, wanted to stay loyal to Britain, stay dependent on them, instead of trying to become their own country. You guys read a couple of documents yesterday answering some questions about that. Just to review those documents quickly, Document A is a pamphlet responding to a prior pamphlet written by a man named Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine's pamphlet Common Sense was a plea for the colonists to use, quote, common sense, end quote, to revolt against Britain and declare independence. This pamphlet was kind of a rebuttal to that. This was written right before the 4th of July in 1776, so independence hadn't been officially declared yet. Document B is an anonymous letter from a newspaper in Pennsylvania, also written before the Declaration of Independence, over a year before in 1775. So what we have in the close reading section is in Document A, a much more depressing, despairing, more intense and serious description of what's going on. The Loyalists in Document A, Charles Inglis, is showing how if we go to war, and it seems that war is imminent based on how he is phrasing this, or at least it's a very real possibility based on what people are doing and saying, that the colonists will have all their ships destroyed and taken, they will have no means for transportation and trade, they will lose Britain as their future ally and a source of aid and an ally for them, and that they're going to die, that it's going to be a bloody war. Realize the colonies aren't official country yet. Their infrastructure, their military, their economy is not sufficient enough to defeat a global power, the global power in Britain. Right before the war starts, he is saying there's no chance we're going to win. All we're going to do is lose, and lose lives as a result. For document B, which is written earlier, the situation's a little bit less dire. You can tell that the revolutionary fervor in the colonies isn't quite as great as it was in document A. Britain has been good to us. They've supported us. We need to be patient, and we need to seek peaceful reconciliation, come to a peaceful compromise. So there is an acknowledgement in both documents that there's a problem here, that something's got to change. But both of them are arguing against war for a little different reasons, because they're written at a little bit different time periods in history. So we go to the context. We see in document A that the colonies are too reliant on England, even though tensions are going up and things are desperate. That's kind of what life is like in the colonies based on what we read. Meanwhile, in document B, life seems to be much better. The colonies have come a long ways from their start. They are growing. They are becoming more powerful and more successful. And things definitely aren't broke enough in the colonies where something needs to change and something needs to be fixed. Kind of that policy, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Get a lot more of that than we have here, where it's acknowledging that there's a broken society, but how we fix it can't be through war. So what's being argued then on the other side of this, this is what the loyalists think, but for those who disagree with the loyalists, what they're saying is that the taxes are too heavy, there needs to be representation, that Britain is ruling them from across an entire ocean, which isn't fair, and that the colonies need to fight for their freedom and independence. It is urgent. It is something that John Locke, who was from England, would have argued for. So these revolutionaries are kind of using England's medicine against them, so to speak, with John Locke's ideas about natural rights and the social contract, and especially the natural right of liberty, and even to some extent property, with the whole issue of taxation. So what I'd like you to do is really put yourself in the shoes of what's going on at this time, and try to view this issue from both the revolutionary perspective as well as the loyalist perspective. It's easy for us, hundreds of years later, to look back, hindsight's 20/20, and say, well, of course the colonists should have revolted because look where we are now. But I don't want you to view this issue with the 20/20 hindsight. I want you to look at it with the big picture, which we're able to have that they weren't. But I also want you to go back in that time period and consider this. Did this really require a violent war and revolution? Did the British government really break its bargain and its end of the social contract to the point where it needed to be overthrown and replaced, or at least the attempt needed to happen? Okay, once again, it's easy to say that, of course it is now, look where we are, but I don't want you to have that 20/20 hindsight, because I think you lose the meaning of history that way, and you lose your ability to learn from it. If we look at today's situation, right, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. You can argue right now that we should be staying inside, following the stay-at-home order for a long time, and that's the safe play and the best play. Or you could argue that, of course, we need to go outside and resume our economy and re-engage because we're losing our liberty by not doing so. Right? But we don't know that right now. It'll be easier for us to know this in 10, 20 years, but right now we just can't tell because there's too much unknown. You to go back and treat this situation the way we have to now, with the fact that there's not the fully known yet. So what I'd like you to do is go back to your quick write, answer it again now that we know a little bit more about the loyalist side of things and the revolutionary side of things. And if you want to change your answer at all, or if you want to adjust the reasons why you think the way you do, please do that. You should be able to edit your answer. Some of the settings I'm putting aren't working, so if you can't find a way to edit your original response, you can rewrite it as a private comment. That will work too. Don't forget to connect your ideas to ideas in the Enlightenment, specifically the ideas of the social contract and natural rights. If I don't read anything about the social contract or natural rights in your response, you won't get full points. And that's true whether you think yes, it was justified, or whether you think no, it wasn't. Feel free to do extra research if you really want to. Otherwise, this revised version of the quick write is due 3 p.m. today. Have a wonderful weekend. Let me know if you have questions. I'll talk to you more Monday.